Today, I will be talking about predictive understanding of extreme precipitation over the Hindu Kush Himalayas and how, with climate change, what is happening. My predecessor has nicely set the stage of the impact of heavy precipitation, extreme precipitation on flood events, on flooding, and so my theme is also based on that, on the heavy precipitation intensity. From the IPCC report, it has come out with some very powerful messages for the current state of the climate system. Already, human-induced climate change is affecting weather and climate extremes in every region across the globe, and we see heat waves, heavy precipitation, droughts, tropical cyclones, and also there is a very strong attribution to human influence, especially after since AR5. And for the future, for the future projections, continued global warming is further projected to intensify the global water cycle and also its variability. So it is not just the mean is going to intensify, also the both the wet and dry extremes are going to intensify. The variability is going to intensify. Also, the global monsoon precipitation and the severity of wet and dry events. So what it means is, with climate warming, with every increment of global warming, the frequency and intensity of extremes are going to get stronger. So be it the hot extremes over land, so they are going to become more frequent with additional global warming. For example, now with at a 1 degree warming, which is what we are having presently, the hot extremes, 10-year extremes, have become 2.8 times more frequent. And with additional warming, the frequency of these events are going to increase. It's not only the frequency, also the intensity. For example, a 50-year event, more intense event, they are also going to become more frequent with further warming. And the same is true for heavy precipitation event over land. 10-year events which were happening once in the pre-industrial condition, now they are happening there's a 30% increase in the frequency. And with additional warming, 1.5 degree, which is in the next 20 years, what is projected, they will become 1.5 times more frequent. And with additional warming, the frequency of these heavy precipitation, daily precipitation events are going to increase. Likewise, it's not only the wet precipitation, also the droughts, the agricultural, ecological droughts, they are also going to become more frequent, and also intensity will increase, especially in the drying regions. And so these are all very important messages. This is because as the temperature warms and in areas where there is drying, the soil moisture evaporation, the evaporative demand of the atmosphere will increase. So soil moisture will decrease in those areas. So now we come to the Hindu Kush Himalaya. What I said in the initial few slides was based on a global assessment from the IPCC. Now coming to the Hindu Kush Himalaya, why is this region special? This is a region which has the strongest monsoon systems on the globe, the South Asian monsoon. It is a source of 10 major Asian rivers, and it is the largest reserve of ice outside the polar region. It's a biodiversity hotspot. It has a diversity in culture, traditions, and languages. This slide is from my colleague Dr. Sabin from our MOES National Climate Change Assessment Report. Yeah, you can also click once more, Dr. Ankit. So these are as I said, the Asian water towers, the glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalayas and the rivers. They are the most important water resource for several Asian countries. There are 10 major river basins that extend into 8 countries. This I picked from the EC mod. And there is a very nice assessment report from the EC mod on the Hindu Kush Himalaya assessment, where in particular we have written a chapter on unraveling climate change in the HKH region, rapid warming in the mountains and increasing extremes. And this region, uniqueness, it has a very strong seasonally reversing monsoons. Winter, we have the winter monsoon, northeasterly winds coming from the Asian continent towards the equator, and they bring a lot of rainfall, particularly to peninsular India and some parts of northeast India. But the main monsoon season is the summer monsoon season during June, July, August, September, and it provides the main supply of water mostly 75%, more than 75% of the annual rainfall or much of the country and the South and Southeast Asian region is received during these 4 months. And there are very strong seasonal reversals in the winds and the temperature gradients associated with these wind reversals. Next slide, please. And now people have analyzed from the long-term data how the HKH has been responding to climate change, and this is one of the regions where the rate of warming is much faster than the global mean in the last, particularly after the 50s. The HKH has warmed at nearly at zero point 0.2 degrees per decade, and so this is a way, and in particular, the some of the regions in the high elevation regions, the rate of warming is even accelerated. Minimum temperatures have also increased in the recent times, and the diurnal temperature range. This is a very clear signal of the global warming. If the diurnal temperature range is becoming smaller and minimum temperatures are increasing, that is one of the clear signals of the global warming. Next slide, please. And also, when you compare the warming over the Himalayas, the rate of increase is much higher, what is shown in the gray line, compared to the warming over the Indian landmass. So the Himalayan region has particularly warming has been high, and especially the higher elevations, when you go to elevations more than 2 kilometers above sea level altitude, so those elevations in particular, the trend of warming that we see is much higher. And this is known in the literature as elevation dependent warming. The physical mechanism of this is not well understood, but many regions in the Himalaya, the higher elevations are warming at a faster rate, and particularly during the winter time as compared to the annual mean. Winter time warming has been stronger, and also it is projected to increase in the future. The future projections are suggesting, indicating rapid warming of the HKH region. And of course, the precipitation, annual precipitation is projected to increase. This is from the CMIP 5 models. With increasing temperatures, of course, snow cover is going to decline. It shows a decrease. But winter time itself, the snow we have seen in the historical period, there has not been much change. And in the future, there could be a slight decrease in the snow cover, but precipitation, especially annual precipitation, is projected to increase. As I said, the HKH region receives rainfall both during the summer season as well, summer monsoon time, and also during the winter months. And but when you look at the May to, this is from Buchhagen and Burbank, they did a complete Himalayan hydrological budget. This is a paper in 2000. And if you see the annual rainfall, mean rainfall, you can see substantial rainfall all along the slopes of the Himalayas. And the central and eastern Himalayas, much of the contribution, more than 60% of that, comes during the May to October months, during the summer monsoon. And whereas when you go to the western Himalayas, northwest Himalayas, especially the high elevation regions, the Karakoram and so on, winter time precipitation is substantial, could be substantial. That is an important point. Next slide, please. And this region is unique, especially the Indian summer monsoon, because it has multi-scale interactions. There are processes happening on multiple time scales. You have the Tibetan plateau, which gets warmed up during the right from the pre-monsoon months. It acts like a heat source, and because of the warming of the land and the high elevated Tibetan plateau, the oceans are at a because of the high heat capacity, the oceans warm at a slower rate. So you have a differential temperature thermal contrast which sets up the monsoon. And so the winds which blow from the high pressure to the low pressure region, as they due to the rotational effect of the earth, you have the cross equatorial flow. The winds pick up moisture from the Indian Ocean, from the Arabian Sea, and when they interact with this orography over the Western Ghats and the Burmese mountain, they produce substantial amount of rain. And there are also various rain producing systems like the monsoon depressions, low pressure systems, and so on. And so precipitation is produced by a variety of processes, and there are some extreme heavy rainfall that happens over the western over Maharashtra and Gujarat, which comes due to what are known as the metropospheric cyclones. And there are also these slowly varying northward moving cloud bands, organized rain bands, which move from the equator to the north on the subseasonal time scale. So they also produce a substantial amount of rainfall during the summer monsoon season. And so you have a variety of rain producing systems, synoptic systems, low pressure systems, organized convection, embedded mesoscale convection, and so on. And so the question is, with climate change, what is going to happen? How is monsoon going to change? How are these monsoon synoptic systems going to change? What will happen to the precipitation? And it is also, monsoon is also affected by external remote influences like El Nino Southern Oscillation or the effects of the IOD. And also now climate change is also affecting. So this is a very, very important question. Next slide, please. So, as I said, we're due to the when the clouds, various cloud systems are producing rainfall, they also release a huge amount of latent heating. This we have to keep in mind. So now with the TRMM satellite data, it is possible to estimate how much is the latent heating. You can get the spatial distribution, the horizontal as well as the vertical distribution. And so the heating is very substantial, the latent heat of condensation when the water vapor condenses into clouds. And due to this, in the upper level, we have a very planetary scale feature known as the Tibetan anticyclone. So this is the warm air is rising, and there is an outflow at the upper troposphere at about 200, 150 hectopascals. And you see a very strong anticyclonic flow. Why I am telling is this is a very global feature, and this was first identified in 1971. And so when the monsoon convection becomes very unstable due to strong convection, the anticyclone can really become unstable. And these can lead to heavy precipitation events such as the Uttarakhand event. Next slide, please. So this is a very important dynamical feature. So I will give some examples like the heavy rainfall over Northwest Himalayas, the June 2013 Uttarakhand rainfall and the floods. And also I will give some example of the 2010 heavy precipitation over the upper Indus Basin over Pakistan and parts of India, and the Leh flash floods. Also, we have examples of heavy rain over northeast Himalayas, over the Assam region, or the Guwahati region, due to flooding of the Brahmaputra. And these normally happen when we have a break in the monsoon. These heavy rainfall over northeast can happen. And the question is, if climate change is happening, what will happen to the precipitation extremes over the Hindu Kush Himalaya? So I will try to cover these aspects in my talk. Next slide, please. So this was in 2013, around June 16th, we had very intense rainfall over Uttarakhand, over Kedarnath, and many large areas of Uttarakhand, very, very heavy rainfall. I'll show those numbers. And this led to flooding over Haridwar, Rishikesh, and this massive Shiva statue, this was washed off on 20th June. And my colleague did this study, Vellur et al. He looked at some 34 heavy rain events composited over this region in the Western Himalayas, and they all have a very similar type of pattern, circulation pattern. Large scale dynamics is very similar. This is the region over the Uttarakhand where this heavy rainfall happened. And so, as I said, this Tibetan anticyclone, which I mentioned, this was 16th of June. It was a case of a very early onset. The monsoon, there was a low pressure system from Bay of Bengal. It moved very quickly from the bay, and it carried the moisture towards in this region, towards the Uttarakhand region. Simultaneously, there was a deep trough. This is in the upper troposphere. You have a very deep north-south trough, right, extending right from the polar regions, from the Arctic, and this persistent trough. So as the low pressure system from the bay moved rapidly, the anticyclone, upper tropospheric anticyclone, became unstable, started wobbling. And the same time, there was this low pressure trough, deep meridional trough extending from the mid latitudes, and the convergence of these two, you can see this even at the mid tropospheric level. The moisture, there was a very strong convergence of moisture in this region that led to the heavy rainfall. So it is a case of strong mid-latitude and monsoon circulation interaction. You can see the evolution. This is on 13 June. You can see the low pressure system located over the east coast. It is moving westward on 15th and on 17th, and then a strong intruding trough. And there was a very strong moisture convergence. This is the precipitable water. You can see the convergence of moisture, the flow coming from the Bay of Bengal, also from the Arabian Sea, increasing the moisture convergence in this region and producing heavy precipitation. Next slide, please. And so, as I said, you can see this was an example of this is the polar low, and this is the subtropical low. And when you look at the isentropic surfaces, you can see a very strong interaction of this extratropical circulation with the monsoon low-level flow from the Bay of Bengal, which led to this heavy precipitation event. Next slide, please. And when we looked at it, and this was not very localized, it was widespread over Uttarakhand, and many areas received more than 300, 400 millimeters of rainfall in a day, and very, very intense. And so these are some of the stations that we have seen. This is a paper by Ranalkar et al. So many areas in Uttarakhand, they received very heavy rainfall in a day. And this event lasted for a couple of days. Next slide, please. And models in our institute, some people even tried to forecast this whether we can predict these type of events. And what they found was, although we are able to predict these events, there are some indications you can do it about 10 days in advance. They could not get the amplitude of the mid-latitude trough. That influenced, they had difficulty. And also, when you look at the circulation response, this is from observations, and this is at model at two different resolutions. There are some differences in the way the monsoon flow is simulated in the model as compared to observations. So these are issues that we really need to improve, even the model simulation of these mesoscale convective systems and the monsoon features. Next slide, please. And another example is the Leh flash flood. This happened in 2010, and Leh is this is in the Ladakh region. It's in the Jammu and Kashmir state. It's a high altitude cold desert, and it was unprecedented. So July 2010, late July 2010, immediately after the Pakistan Indus flooding, just a week after that, there was a massive flash flooding in the Leh region, and this led to torrential rains. And this was caused by, from the satellite data, this study by Rasmussen House, they noted that this was triggered by successive mesoscale convective events that led to the flooding. Next slide, please. Basically, they looked at the Meteosat images and also the reanalysis circulation products. You can see the low-level the monsoon circulation from the Bay of Bengal, which is taking the moisture into this region. But simultaneously, over the Tibetan Plateau, due to the heating in the daytime, due to the diurnal variation of convection, afternoon and late evening, these deep convective storms were getting generated. And these diurnally generated mesoscale convective systems, they kind of propagate from the Tibetan region further westward. And at the same time, when you have the moist flow coming from the Bay of Bengal, so as the moisture gets pumped into these mesoscale convective systems, so in the Leh Ladakh region, the moisture is forced to undergo uplift, and it can trigger very heavy rainfall. And heavy rainfall can also be triggered by patterns of sea surface temperature gradients in the Indo-Pacific. And this was a study by our colleague, our student, Dr. Priya. She looked at the heavy precipitation over the Pakistan Upper Indus Basin during 2010, and we noted that the warm sea surface temperature conditions in the Indian Ocean, and also there was a very strong La Nina, ongoing La Nina. It altered the large-scale circulation patterns, and the moisture that evaporated due to the warm SST was transported by the monsoon flow towards this region, towards the Upper Indus Basin, and this led to extreme heavy precipitation and strong convection over the region. Next slide, please. And the other example that I wanted to tell is about normally during summer monsoon time, there are many times over central India, the rainfall will be very low in the core during July and August, especially in core rainy season. We call it break, and this break can last for several times, several days, and sometimes even several weeks. couple of weeks. So during these breaks in the monsoon, what many times we have seen is northeast India gets rainfall, especially Assam region and Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, especially the flooding of the Brahmaputra and its tributaries. These are all some examples during 2017, and they can be very severe. Next slide, please. And they lead to a lot of damage. And now the National Remote Sensing Agency produces this flood hazard zonation maps for the Brahmaputra and its river basins. We can get this for every monsoon season for the entire period. So this is one more region where we have some understanding of how these heavy precipitation and flooding happens. Next slide, please. And people have documented, it's not only Assam and regions in the Arunachal Pradesh and Meghalaya, also some parts of Nepal, slopes of Nepal, heavy rainfall occurs during these breaks in the monsoon. So when the break in the monsoon occurs, rainfall over India, much of the plain of India is less, but we see very intense rainfall over the northeast. And because over central India, we have a high pressure, anomalous high pressure, about 3 to 4 hectopascal. So the winds are very weak, rainfall is weak. But we see that this time rainfall, the monsoon trough shifts to the foothills, Himalayan foothills, and there is flow of moisture from the bay towards this Meghalaya region, towards the Assam region. And the subtropical westerlies, which are generally more poleward, they kind of shift southward. So the interaction of the subtropical westerly and you have the moist flow from the Bay of Bengal can trigger heavy rainfall over the Assam region and during breaks. So it's a very unusual phenomena. And the models are also, we did some experiments trying to understand what happens to the monsoon, different with anthropogenic forcings like greenhouse gases. So if you have only greenhouse gases, what we found was the monsoon precipitation increases, and also the circulation intensifies, and you have less rainfall over northeast India. But you have drivers like aerosols, especially like the sulfate aerosols, which scatter radiation or more absorbing type of aerosols. They can really cool the surface, and they can offset the effects of the greenhouse gases. And just with the anthropogenic aerosols which are happening over the Asian continent, also over the Europe and mid-latitude region, North American regions, the effects of these anthropogenic aerosols, they can offset the greenhouse gas forcing and weaken the monsoon circulation. So in this case, we see the effect of the aerosols. We see more precipitation over the northeast Himalayas, just like a break type of situation. So these are all some of the internal dynamics. And now another important driver is with anthropogenic climate change and global warming. One of the big signals we are seeing is the decline in the Arctic sea ice. So projections are indicating that in the next 40-50 years, Arctic may be practically ice-free with future warming. And this has big implications for the circulation changes. Next slide, please. And so one of the important effects, what is known as the Arctic amplification, because normally the polar jet stream is confined, and this is the region of the cold polar air, and which is well separated from the subtropics and subtropics. And but if due to warming, if the Arctic starts warming and the ice starts melting, then basically the temperature gradient between the mid-latitude and the poles is going to weaken, and this will weaken the polar jet stream. Basically, the jet stream will become weak, and this will lead to more wavy nature. It will start meandering as it weakens. And due to Arctic amplification, the jet stream will weaken, and you will see these large waves, meanders in the jet stream. Next slide, please. And studies have shown that with the rapid Arctic warming and this meandering of the jet stream, you can get heat waves, extreme heat waves like the European heat wave in 2010, Russian heat wave, and also heavy precipitation which happened over Pakistan and so on. So these large-scale dynamical changes in the mid-latitude jet streams and the polar jet stream can create these type of extremes in the mid-latitude and the subtropical areas. Next slide, please. So that is something we have to keep in mind. And furthermore, another important consequence is the warming of the Himalayan region and the Tibetan plateau. Observations, in situ observations have shown that this region has warmed about northwest Himalayas at about 1.6 degree during the last century, and particularly during the winters. And I also said that earlier that high elevations, elevations which are more than 2000 meters, they are warming at a faster rate compared to the low elevations. Next slide. This is known as the elevation dependent warming. And so winter time also you can have important implications. This is an example of these are disturbances that come from the Mediterranean region, and these disturbances they propagate along the subtropical jet stream, and when they encounter the Himalayan orography, which has strong gradients, especially the western Himalayan orography, these troughs can anchor. So, and we call them in the literature as western disturbances. And these western disturbances give a lot of rainfall over parts of northwest India, normally during from December through the winter and even early spring. And this was a and what we see is sometimes these troughs in the western disturbance can extend very much southward, and you can get rainfall even over Maharashtra, Pune, Mumbai, and so on. And they are important source of precipitation. And very recently, when in Nainital, what we saw the heavy rainfall last week was also due to a western disturbance. But interestingly, that was also interacting with a convective system coming from the Bay of Bengal. It was a very peculiar case of a western disturbance and cloud systems coming from the Bay of Bengal that led to the heavy precipitation. Next slide, please. And we tried to look at these type of western disturbances with a high resolution model, how whether climate change can affect it. And this is where this model has a very high resolution of about 35 kilometers grid, and is a global model. And what we found was a historical simulation with both natural and anthropogenic forcing, that is greenhouse gases, aerosol, land use, land cover change. We find that in this particular experiment, heavy precipitation that exceed the 90th percentile, they actually increased over this region, over the northwest Himalayas, very similar to the observations. And this we also see in the future projection, the heavy precipitation events are going to increase in the RCP 4.5 scenario. Next slide, please. And why is this happening? When we try to understand, we find that from the observations, the increase in the heavy precipitation are due to the increase in the amplitude of the western disturbances, especially over the Karakoram Himalayas. The amplitude of the western disturbance are increasing, the amplitude variations, and that is why the extremes are happening. That was our assessment. And why is this related to climate change? Next slide, please. What we found is seems to be related to the warming of the Tibetan plateau, especially the elevation dependent warming. As the higher elevations get warmer at a faster rate, it sets up some kind of a large scale change in the large scale background circulation. And so you kind of get a very large scale anticyclonic flow, stationary pattern over the Tibetan region, and further on the western side, you see a kind of a stationary trough. So this kind of change in the background flow due to the elevation dependent warming of the Tibetan plateau, the stationary wave pattern, they can facilitate the amplitude variations of the western disturbance. That was our idea. Next slide, please. So basically, what I'm trying to say, there are going to be increases in the frequency and intensity of hot extremes, as well as heavy precipitation, and as well as droughts, and also tropical cyclones, and reductions in the Arctic sea ice, snow cover, and permafrost. So, what are the consequences? So, with increasing temperature, surface temperature, the immediate consequence is water vapor will increase in the atmosphere. With every 1 degree warming, water vapor will increase by 7% by the Clausius-Clapeyron equation. So, heavy precipitation will also increase at the same rate. And so, with further warming, there is going to be more water vapor. That means the same type of events, what we are seeing, like the Uttarakhand, the intensity could be much severe with warming. And also the effects of the Arctic amplification, what we saw, those changes in the jet stream and the meanders in the flow, mid-latitude circulation patterns and the subtropical patterns, they can also intensify the extreme precipitation events. So clearly, what I want to highlight is the Indian monsoon is a multi-scale interactive phenomena. It has its own internal dynamics and land-sea contrast, convective coupling, And now there are also, due to these coupled interactions, the precipitation patterns can be affected. Also, there are teleconnections like the El Nino Southern Oscillation, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, IOD, MJO. They can also affect the precipitation processes in this region. In addition, on smaller scales like the cloud microphysics, the aerosol cloud interactions, and these are all very important aspects of the monsoon systems. And on top of that, we have the external forcing due to the increasing greenhouse gases, aerosols, land use, land cover change. They have a substantial impact on the flooding, impacts due to flooding. And there are various sectorial impacts on water, agriculture, energy, health, ecosystems, environment, which require adaptation strategies and policy making strategies. And clearly, we need to develop capacity to do these things. And to address this complex problem, we need various methodologies. You need computer simulations, Earth simulation models, and models of various complexities, application models like hydrology, crops, energy, so on. You need observations, also satellite data analysis, data assimilation, ensemble prediction tools, because this is not a deterministic problem. So you need an ensemble of predictions, and you need complex systems, advanced techniques to see these complex systems, networks, and so on. So, in short, heavy precipitation in the HKH and third pole, particularly during the summer monsoon, it involves atmospheric dynamics, the monsoon circulation, Tibetan anticyclone, monsoon and extratropical circulation interaction, clouds and convection, how the mesoscale convective systems, the latent heating, moisture transport, and sea surface temperature gradients in the tropical oceans. And I gave some examples of the Uttarakhand event, the upper Indus precipitation event in 2010, the Leh event in July August 2010, and Northeast India heavy precipitation during monsoon breaks, winter western disturbances, and precipitation over western Himalayas. So the impact of climate change on these extreme precipitation is very much possible because of the increase in the water vapor in a warming climate, and also the deep convective systems over the tropics, monsoon, and the third pole environment are projected to intensify as the water vapor increases, and also intensified moisture transport into precipitating regions. There are also other drivers like the Tibetan plateau warming, declining Arctic ice, sea ice, and large scale circulation anomalies, increased snow and glacier melt over the Himalayas, and also the regional land use, land cover changes. And so clearly, we need to improve the prediction potential of precipitation in the HKH and third pole. How do we do that? We have to enhance our early warning systems, the observations, radar, satellite, balloons. We need to improve our data. We are doing a good job, especially the assimilation of the winds, divergent winds, water vapor, clouds, and convection, high resolution modeling with improved physics, and now new techniques like the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are data driven approaches. They can also improve some of the model parameterizations. And we have to link research to operations and applications. So we need both strengthen basic research, education, capacity building, but we also need to connect them with operations and applications. So this needs a very coordinated strategy involving water, agriculture, transport, disaster management, and defense, and so on. Yeah, thank you very much for your kind attention.